Hello and welcome to the movement series. Today's routine is all about the flow. We're going to use a lot of transitions and it's going to be really centered around good breathing and going in and out of these postures as smoothly as possible. I'm going to add in a couple of new postures as well today, so let's get straight into it. So coming up to the front of our mat for our usual warm up, reaching up to the ceiling for our sun salutation routine. Nice deep breath in. And then folding forward, coming down, hands down to the mat, tuck the chin into the chest and just allow the back of the legs to stretch out a little bit. Allow the body to warm up. Knees can be slightly bent. And when we're ready, coming up onto the fingertips. Now if we can't quite reach the mat with the fingertips, we can place our hands onto the shins, but just tuck the chin a little bit so we keep a nice long neck. Take a few breaths here. And then when we're ready, stepping back into our press up plank. So here we can either be in the full press up plank, we can be on our forearms, we can be down on our knees. Okay, so just choose the modification that suits you and your capabilities. But if we are in the full press up position, make sure the hands are directly underneath the shoulders, the hips are level. We're breathing deeply into the belly. Okay, a couple more breaths here. Now we can either drop the knees down and come down slowly, or we can come down in our press up position, elbows by the side, and we can just either hover above the ground or lay on the ground. And then we're coming up into our upward dog. So a little modification here, we can be on our forearms for this, if it's just a little bit too intense on the back, or we can be in the full upward dog. Roll the shoulders back, open up the chest. Okay, our back's very rarely in this extension position, so it may feel a little bit awkward to start with. Just work with your body, work with your capabilities, and don't force any of these postures. Okay, a couple more deep breaths into the belly. And then coming up onto the toes and coming back into our downward dog. So here, the heels can be off the mat a little bit, knees slightly bent. Let's sink down into the shoulders, make sure our back is nice and flat. Elbows straight, arms strong. It's a fantastic exercise for building strength and stability around the shoulders. We can drop down to the knees at any point during this routine. Couple more breaths here. And then walking the feet up in between the hands and coming up into standing. Okay, second set. Reaching up to the ceiling, create spine, space through the spine. And then folding forward. Hands down to the mat, tuck the chin into the chest. And again, our hands can be on our shins the ground's just a little out of reach. But wherever we're at, keep the knees slightly bent, sink down, bend in at the hips. And then when we're ready, stepping back into our press up plank. So again, choose the modification that suits you, either down on the forearms, down on the knees. If you're somewhere in between, just come in and out of the full press up plank and then drop the knees back down until you build enough strength to hold the posture. So let's hang here for a couple more moments, keep the hips level. And then when we're ready, we can either drop down to the knees and come down slowly, or we can come down in the press up. Elbows by the side, and either just hovering above the mat or laying on the mat. And then coming up into our upward dog. And again, we can drop down to the forearms for this one, if need be. Open up the chest. Breathe deeply into the belly. And then when we're ready, coming up onto the toes and transitioning back into our downward dog. So the body's warmer now. We might be able to sink a little bit deeper. But let's make sure the back is flat, hips are nice and tall. What can commonly happen is we're trying to drop the heels down to the mat and we end up losing that nice posture through the back. So lift the heels up. Unless you have that range of motion, we're all a little bit different. Making that breath at the forefront of this practice. And then when we're ready, walking the feet up in between the hands and coming up into standing. Okay, third and final set. Reaching up to the ceiling, take a nice deep breath into the belly. And then fold forward, hands down to the mat and tuck the chin into the chest. Okay, by now we might be able to reach a little bit further down towards the mat. When we're ready, coming up onto the fingertips. Keep the back flat, tuck the chin in. Hands can be on the shins if need be. Knees slightly bent. Let's sit back into those hips. And then stepping back into our press up plank. So again, dropping down to the forearms if need be. This is your routine. Choose the modification that suits you best. But we stay calm and in control throughout all of these postures. Okay, and when we're ready, we can drop down to the knees, or we can come down nice and slowly in the press up. Elbows by the side to just above the mat or laying on the mat. And then coming up into our upward dog. So again, we can be down on the forearms for this one if need be. It's a great one for opening up the stomach, open up the front of the hips. It's challenging on the shoulders. Working on improving range of motion through our wrists. And then when we're ready, coming up onto the toes and sitting back into our third downward dog. So our arms are very rarely overhead, and so we lose that strength and stability around the shoulder girdle. It's a great exercise for reinforcing that movement pattern. Okay, we can drop down to the knees at any point. Making sure we keep good form throughout the whole routine. Allow it to be challenging, but don't push it too hard. That is just too much. Okay, and when we're ready, we're walking the feet up in between the hands, and we're coming up into standing. Good work. Okay, we're going to get into a half moon posture now. So standing with the feet completely together, interlace the fingers except for your index finger, reach up to the ceiling, and then we're going to bend over to the side, pushing the hips out to the left and reaching out to the right. It's a great one for opening up the side of our body through our torso, through the lower back. The further we reach over, the more we have to balance. Keep the arms close to the ears, reaching up nice and tall. And then coming back up, and then going to the other side. So that's a great one to also highlight range of motion from left to right. Okay, reaching up, allowing the arms to keep touching the ears. Couple more breaths. And then coming up and just dropping the hands down, give the hands a shake out. We're going to do that one more time. So again, reach the arms overhead. Get the arms touching the ears, and when we're ready, we're leaning over to the right and dropping the hips out to the left. Breathing into the belly. And then when we're ready, coming back up and swapping sides, coming over, leaning to the left, drop the hips out to the right. Keep reaching with the arms. Couple more breaths here. And coming up. And arms down. Good work. So we're going to open up into our warrior pose now. So back foot at 90 degrees, front foot pointing forward in line, the heels up. And we're going to sink down We're going to bring the arms up to shoulder level. We're going to sink into the hips. We're going to hold it here for a few breaths. And then we're going to transition down into our sun salutation routine from here. So just keep the body nice and vertical. Enjoy this stretch through the inside of that back leg. And then from here, we're going to place the hands down either side of that front foot and shift back into our press up plank. Couple of breaths here. Again, we can be on our forearms for this one if need be. And then when we're ready, we're lowering down to just above the mat. And then we're coming up into our upward dog. Again, being down on the forearms if need be. And then up onto the toes. And down into your downward dog. Couple of breaths here. And then stepping forward with just your left foot. Pivot the right foot. And then coming up and swapping sides. So into our warrior pose on our right hand side now. So line the heels up. Sink down into the hips and bring the arms up to shoulder level. Okay, and just enjoy this stretch through the inside of the leg on the back leg. So again, these postures will highlight differences throughout this whole routine. So take note what feels fluid and what feels challenging. Okay, and from here, we're going to place the hands down either side of that front foot. And we're going to sweep that right foot back and get into our press up plank. So again, drop down to the forearms if need be. And then from here, we're going to either drop down to the knees if need be, or come down in the full press up. Elbows by the side to just above the mat, or laying on the mat, and then coming up into your upward dog. Open up the shoulders, we can be on the forearms if need be. Up onto the toes and shifting back into your downward dog. Good work. Take a few breaths here. Drop down to the knees at any point, rejoin us. This is a practice, so just slowly work through these routines, practice the moves. Okay, and when we're ready, we're going to step forward with just our left foot in between the hands, and we're going to come up into our forward lunge. Reaching the arms overhead. Just draw that pelvis in. Engage through the front of the stomach. Be nice and strong through that back leg. Reaching the arms up. Putting that back leg into extension. Okay, and from here, I'm going to place the hands back down either side of that front foot. Step back into our press up plank. So hold it here for a few moments. And then when we're ready, coming down nice and slowly, elbows by the side. And then coming up into our upward dog. Open up the shoulders. And then into our downward dog. So don't worry if you're struggling to keep up. Always catch us up in this downward dog. The more familiar you get with the routines, the easier it will become. Okay, and then from here, we're going to step forward with our right foot. So taking a nice big step forward in between the hands, get into good position, and then coming up into our forward lunge. Right foot forward, left foot back. Reaching up, draw that pelvis in. Be nice and strong through the stomach. Maintain that breathing. And then when we're ready, placing the hands either side of that front foot. In itself, this is a challenging stretch. And then step back. And again, we can be in the forearms for this. Or we can be in the full press up. And when we're ready, either dropping the knees down or coming down in the full press up. Elbows by the side to just above the mat. And then coming up into your upward dog. And then onto the toes and into your downward dog. And if you're having to step out of any of these postures, just rejoin us at any stage. Work at your own pace, work with your capabilities. It should feel challenging, but it should feel good. If anything's painful, just drop to the knees, take a breather, and recheck your posture. Okay, let's walk the feet up in between the hands. Good work. Okay, we're going to get into a fantastic one leg balance and posture now. So, spread the toes out on that left foot. We're going to reach down and grab our right ankle. I'm going to place the foot on the inside of the leg. You can have a chair next to you if you need to. And if you need to just hold on to that ankle, that's absolutely fine. But if you feel comfortable, bring the arms overhead. We're just going to hang out here. So yes, it is a challenging balancing posture this, but it's pretty calming as well when we get into position. So focus on something on the wall that isn't moving. Quieten the mind. Open up that hip. We can lower that foot down a little bit more if need be. We can hold on to a chair by our side just to get used to this posture. Let's hold it here for a few more breaths. Enjoy this moment. Bring the hands down and just release that foot in control. Good work. Okay, spread the toes out on that right foot now. While we bring the left foot up to the inside of that leg. And again, we can just hold that foot there. If you're happy to do so, bring the hands overhead. It's always going to have a bit of a weaker side. So a great one for identifying left to right imbalances. If you can, straighten those arms so the arms touch the ears. Come out at any stage. All the while keeping that breathing nice and fluid. And then bring the arms down and slowly release that leg. We're going to do that one more time on each side. So spread the toes out on that left foot. Reach down. Grab the right foot. Place that on the inside of the leg. Open up the hip. So your leg is at 90 degrees. And if you're happy to do so, bring the arms up overhead so your arms touch your ears. So focus on something still on the wall. Breathing into the belly. Soften the shoulders. And try and be as calm as you can in this awkward posture. Okay, a couple more breaths here. Slowly moving down in control and release that foot. Okay, spread the toes out on this right foot now. When you're ready, coming down, reaching down, grabbing that left ankle, and bring that foot on the inside of that right leg. If you're happy, slowly bring the hands overhead. Focus your mind. This is challenging, but a great opportunity to think of nothing else except staying upright. Breathing into the belly. You can hold on to that left ankle for a bit more balance if needed. And when we're ready, come down in control, reach for that ankle and release. Good work. Okay, we're going to open up into our triangle pose now. So, back foot at 45-degree angle, right foot pointing forward. Let's straighten that knee. Okay, so not having the knee bent. Lock it out, but make sure we're not pushing it back too much. When we're ready, we're going to slide down the inside of that right leg. So the fingertips are just on the mat. And we're going to open up and reach up. So it's a fantastic posture, this one. Working on spinal rotation. Working on mobility through the hip. Balance, coordination, like all these postures. Strength and stability. Okay, and from here, we're going to come down, we're going to meet the two hands together. And then we're going to reach that left hand over the right foot for our reverse triangle. Again, the hand can be up on the shin, but make sure we're not pushing down on the shin. We don't want to force that knee into too much extension. If you're having to hold on for dear life, then just come out of the posture. We need to hold these in good control, good balance, without overextending ourselves. The more times you practice, the more fluid you'll become, and the further you'll be able to get into these postures. But it doesn't happen overnight. Okay, and from here, I'm going to slightly bend the knee. We're going to place the hands down either side of that front foot, and we're going to step back into our press-up plank. So again, we can be down on the knees, we can be on the forearms. I'm going to hold it here for a few moments whilst we make that transition. Okay, and then from here, we're going to come down to the ground. Elbows by the side in our press-up plank, coming down to just above the mat or laying on the mat. Then we're going to come up into our upward dog, and again choosing the modifications so we can be on our forearms, and then from here come up onto the toes and shift back into our downward dog. So a lot of shoulder work today. A lot of moving between postures. Okay, a couple more breaths here. And then walking the feet up in between the hands, coming up into standing. We're going to open up to our left now. So left foot pointing forward, right foot about 45-degree angle, line the heels up, and we're going to come down into our triangle pose on the left hand side. So sliding down just as far as you can feel comfortable to do so, and then reaching up. And again, just take note of how this side feels compared to the other. Can really give you valuable information of where you hold tension. And from here, we're going to come down and meet our left hand. And then we're going to reach over that left foot with our right hand. And we're going to come into our reverse triangle. So again, make sure that we're not pushing any force through that shin or through that knee. We need to be holding this posture, using our leg strength, our balance. If it's just too much, we can have the hand down. We can take a little bit of the rotation out of it. There's plenty of modifications for this. There's no end to any of these postures. We can always go deeper. Okay, and then from here, we're going to come back down, one hand either side of that left foot, bend that left knee, and sweep that left foot back into our press-up plank. So we'll just hang here while we all catch up. And again, choose the modification that suits you, either on the knees, the forearms. Doesn't matter where you're at. Most important thing is you're doing it. Okay, you're participating in these routines. That's the main thing. Okay, and from here, we're going to come down nice and slowly, elbows by the side. We can be just hovering above the mat. And then coming up into our upward dog. So roll the shoulders open. And then coming up onto the toes and shifting back into your downward dog. Let's hang here. Okay, if this is challenging enough for you, stay here. If you want to take it a step further, we're going to just bring the feet together. We're going to sink that right heel down to the mat, and we're going to raise the left foot up. So the knee can just be bent. The foot can be just above the ground. Doesn't really matter how far you want to lift that
left leg up. The most important thing is we stay stable through the shoulders, through that right leg. Okay, we're going to stay here for a few more moments, a couple more breaths. And then place that left foot down and raise that right leg up. So if you're in the straight downward dog, you need to take a breather, just drop to the knees. And straight away you'll feel maybe a difference between left and right, the amount of range you have through the back of the legs. Shoulders will start to fatigue now. Couple more breaths here. Bring that foot down, drop to the knees. Just going to sit back onto the heels, reaching forward. And just stretch out those shoulders. Okay, coming forward, we're going to finish as we always do, laying flat on our back. Open up the feet, open up the hands. And let's take this moment just to get our breathing back into check. Okay, we worked hard today. It was a challenging routine. A little bit more movement. Let's make sure when we're breathing right down into the belly. You may want to put one hand on your stomach, one on your chest, and just make sure that when you inhale, all the movement's coming from the stomach, the belly's rising up. We're going right to the top of that inhale. And then as we exhale, we're slowly allowing that stomach to drop. Just make sure our inhale and our exhale match in duration. It's a great way to finish any routine, any workout. Gives us a chance just to feel where we were most challenged. So if you've got 5 or 10 minutes now just to work on your breathing, then I'd thoroughly recommend you stay where you're at. If you do need to head off, then make this a priority to come back to at some point during the day. It's a great way improving our general performance in everything that we do. You'll become more efficient and have a clearer mind. So it's awesome to have you join me today. I hope you enjoyed today's routine. Have a fantastic rest of day, and I look forward to seeing you on the mat again tomorrow. Thank you very much.